So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending the first of many symposiums, hopefully, on AI and the law. My name is Massimo. I'm a second year at the Colleges of Law. This is a very exciting topic, so if you're bored, it's definitely my fault. There's no way this should be boring. So I'm just going to jump right into it because I have a lot to cover, okay? So, this is a little roadmap of today. We are at the overview. I'm going to try to provide you with like a foundation for the presentations to come. If you have any questions about this presentation, you can talk to me at lunch. I'm happy to talk about any of this stuff. Really, this is what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to breeze through certain slides, spend more time on others. But really, it's going to be definitions of AI, categorizations, really not so much consumer applications, a bit about artificial adjudication, and then future topics, okay? So, sorry. There's a bit of a disclaimer here. This is what we are not going to be talking about today. Artificial general intelligence. This is a really hot topic. It's fun. It's good conversation for lunch, but we're not talking about it. It's really the AI that you see in sci-fi, your favorite fiction. A lot of people think that in legal tech think this is a legally irrelevant topic because AGI is either impossible, highly improbable, too speculative. Other people think there's legal merit because companies like Google's DeepMind, OpenAI, they are openly focused on building AGI, and it doesn't really need to be a thinking machine. It's just an all-purpose general tool, right? But the reason we're not talking about this today is pretty simple. AGI is thought to universally not exist, so we're not going to talk about it. Okay. So no AGI, why do we care, right? There's many reasons. Weak AI is ubiquitous across American homes and businesses. It's everywhere. Innovation is surging. Nation states use weak AGI in adjudication. The White House has proposed an AI Bill of Rights. You can check that out. I think this Monday there's going to be an executive order on AI. So there's plenty of reasons to care. It's kind of obvious, I think, why we should care if you just look at like the boom of what's happening with AI. So defining AI is something I'm going to try to help us do. There's no universally agreed upon definition, right? Some people are trying to define a singular thing like ChatGPT or Bard. Other people are trying to define like the whole field of study. It's difficult. We're not going to spend too much time on this because you could have a whole symposium on this really. Lawyers know definitions are hard, right? Later today, someone's going to talk about a case where our courts struggle to define chicken. So definitions are really hard, and AI is no different. Academics have really narrowed things down to this quartet of possibilities. I don't want to spend too much time on this slide, but I just have this up here so that you see that the ideal rationality portion is something to note because weak AI, the rationality that it uses the reasoning might be totally dissimilar to a human lawyer or impossible for a human lawyer. And that's going to be important to note. Future slide. Thankfully, we do have a well-accepted definition for lawyers. And this is something you can actually work with. You can apply it to a fact pattern. It comes from law professor Harry Surden, who's an inspiration for my research. He's informed about 30% of my research. He's the associate director of the Codex at Stanford. If there's anything to take away from today and you want to know more, I start with Harry Surden. He's awesome. His lectures are on YouTube. He has papers on this. This is one of the big things that he does. And this is a great definition because, you can really, really work with it. So now we're going to really get into categorizing AI, right? This is the major bulk of this intro. We have top-down, bottom-up. We're going to kind of pretend that hybrids don't exist. But they do. It's basically all hybrids nowadays. A little piece of history here is in the top right is Alan Turing. This is a bifurcation, the top-down, bottom-up, that lawyers use, but it really started, Alan Turing said this first in a 1948 manifesto, and he's basically the godfather of AI. So it's kind of cool. It's top-down and bottom-up has stood up over time. Okay, now let's really get into it. A few points. Top-down AI, I want you to kind of visualize a tree, a decision tree that's basically something that needs to be, lawyers and programmers need to explicitly provide the operating and decision rules for this ahead of time. For this to work in law, the statutes need to be axiomatically clear enough to be represented in binary logic. What that really just means is the answer to the statute needs to be yes or no. Obviously, a huge portion of law, it's the quintessential catchphrase is it depends. So it's not going to really work for a whole bunch of stuff, but it does work on some things. Notably, I call this boring AI, even though it's not boring. It's just kind of the older stuff. The large chains of deduction that this sort of AI does in the law, emphasis on large, might be so large that a lawyer either can't do it or could do it and it would take so long, right? So it saves you on all those billable hours. I'm going to give you an example coming up. It seems boring, but it's just a great example. But just note that for the top-down AI, imagine a decision tree. If X, then Y. If not X, then not Y. Or basically all kinds of just basic deductions are how these kinds of systems work. So this is a really good example. Personal income tax law is perfect for top-down AI because it's axiomatically clear. Maybe not for humans, but it's clear for a machine. You can, like TurboTax is, they got attorneys, accountants, engineers to train a top-down AI to use the computational equivalent of the tax code to do these huge deductive decision trees, which are calculated in minutes as opposed to whatever time it would take an attorney or an accountant. It's impressive, and it's so accurate that, according to Professor Certain, IRS basically defaults to its judgments. If anyone has a better source on that, I've been looking to see if the IRS actually acknowledges that that's what it's doing. Let me know. But that's enough of this. Now we're going to get to kind of the spicier stuff. This is the large language, or no, these are the bottom-up AI, right? This is the kind of AI that it deploys typical descriptors of the mind, right? Neural net. So really a good way to kind of think about this is maybe visualize a human brain, a subpart of a human brain, but, artificial. Bottom-up programs often follow a design theory of connectionism, meaning they're basically trying to copy a brain. This is newer stuff. I think a decent analogy for lawyers is top-down AI is kind of like civil law with codified statutes. The bottom-up stuff is more like common law, where you need a reflexive sort of, you don't know what's going to happen next kind of judge interpretation. It's kind of like a crude analogy, but kind of helps. Now we're going to move on to probably the reason I think we're here, large language models. Without large language models, if they didn't come out, we probably wouldn't be having the symposium. This is where all the hype is. ChatGPT, November 30th, it came out. That was the original version. Today, GPT-4 just passed the bar in the 90th percentile. This is definitely where all the hype is. So, state-of-the-art chatbot. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Okay, it's basically the way it kind of works is partly by billions of values that define connections between the neurons, which are called weights. Analyzing vast amounts of unstructured or structured data. It was trained on the internet, like all of the internet. A really simple way to explain ChatGPT is it really just predicts the next word in a sentence over and over again, which doesn't sound that impressive, but when it works, it actually is very impressive. Legal tech companies based on ChatGPT are popping up all over the place. I get ads for them all the time. I've tried some of them. Spellbook gives me so many ads. Firms like Allen and Overy have already adopted ChatGPT technologies like Harvey, basically just connecting an API with ChatGPT and training the program on their legal documents, which gives them their own little ChatGPT that's going to be more accurate and potentially not hallucinate as much. Hallucinations are basically when it just gives you incorrect information. For a while, this was just text, but that quickly changed. You'll see it on the next slide. Now, large language models produce much more than text. Executable machine code, audio, images, right? Law firms use this kind of technology for e-discovery, contract review and analysis, key performance indicators, research and compliance, and probably one of the craziest things is predictive analytics, trying to develop like a litigation strategy. This is a Thomson Reuters poll about basically people obviously have very mixed opinions on this of whether they're going to use them or not in the legal community. it's definitely it's controversial. You've all heard some of the ChatGPT horror stories that will be talked about. So, moving on, this is like the most mundane AI ever. That's why I have it here to kind of juxtapose with artificial adjudication. Word and Grammarly, I mean, lawyers around the world definitely use these programs. They work very well now. They do include AI. I think like on a scale of 1 to 10, these are like a 1 in terms of the policy concerns they listed. Very boring. But on the opposite end of the spectrum is something called algorithmic adjudication. It's not the only word you could use. So I'm just going to talk about other countries for a moment. This is an actual photo of a court AI judge in China. China basically, based on a very complex history, have integrated AI into their governance. Some articles refer to this as autonomous or robot judges, which is kind of hyperbole, but the Chinese government did decide to give these programs individual names and avatars in the courtroom. These systems deploy like real-time argument summarizations. They evaluate evidence. They give award recommendations. One system that I was studying is called Zhaoqi. It helped a human judge adjudicate matters in a certain region, dropping the time down to 30 minutes. I'm not going to make like some normative claim about any of this. It's just educational. But it's important to note that currently these are not actually autonomous judges, despite what articles online say. There's always a human. They mainly do clerical assistance and recommendations. They're kind of like AI assistants in the courtroom, always under human supervision. China's current Chief Justice is saying, oh no, there's always going to be a human. Okay. Across the world, though, AI technologies engaging in adjudication exist. Estonia has a small claims judge. There are AI mediators in Canada and the UK. And yes, there is artificial adjudication in the United States. I'm not going to talk too much about this. Mr. Sanger's going to be talking about this a bit. But Compass is one of the risk assessments tools being used by judges. It was created by a professor of statistics and also a professional in the corrections industry. This company kind of has a white paper out there, but really the code of Compass, like the code is a proprietary enigma, also known as a black box, which brings about all kinds of potential legal issues. The output clearly informs decisions about bail and sentencing. It kind of works with a 137 question questionnaire. It gives the judge a scale of a 1 to 10 of potential recidivism. So it's a little more to that than that, but yeah. In one case, the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled that a defendant's due process rights were not violated by the sentencing judge's consideration of Compass. They had a more complex analysis, but basically they were saying because we can see the output, your procedural due process wasn't violated. So there's all kinds of algorithmic adjudication. Michigan's MIDAS system, I can't really sugarcoat this. It's a $46 million system. It's a complete failure. It's now being replaced by something called UFAX. It basically predicted whether people were trying to engage in insurance fraud. Between October 2013 and September 2015, this system by algorithm alone, right? They're not even doing that in China. By algorithm alone, 85% incorrect, up to probably 93% incorrect when it was all said and done, accusing people of insurance fraud. So it was really bad. In a unanimous opinion, the Michigan Supreme Court said that workers could sue for a violation of their constitutional rights. I think, it was settled last year for $20 million. Artificial adjudication is... Actually, I have an analogy or an anecdote. My old logic professor used to tell me when building a logic-based system or a logical argument, which includes AI, he wanted me to imagine it as a machine that makes sausages. I don't know why sausage, but he said basically assume that you build the machine with perfect logical structure, which is supposed to represent the validity of the machine. With horrible ingredients, which is like soundness, or in this case, like data, right? If you put horrible ingredients into a well-built logic machine, you're still going to get a terrible sausage, right? It's a garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. The same could be said with artificial adjudication and AI in general. When you have biased data, or no matter what, if the data going in is bad, what's going to come out is most likely not going to be ideal. Okay, we aren't able to dive into every critical topic, so I apologize if some of you are here to hear about some of these things, which are super important, probably going to be the focus of future symposium, especially economics, AI, and legal jobs. I know specifically there are people here that want to hear about this, but without, it takes a lot of empirical research. It can be highly speculative and dynamic because new products keep coming out. But that's definitely going to be a focus, hopefully, in the future. The same can be true for this alignment problem. The alignment problem is what computer scientists and AI researchers are talking about when you want to build an AI with safety, basically in a goal-oriented way first before you deploy it. You want to sort of make sure it aligns with your goals. In the legal field, this would mean aligning with our legal goals, our frameworks, our traditions. Some people think I've done the opposite of this for 30 years and we're 30 years behind. Basically just build awesome stuff first, think about safety afterwards. So the alignment problem and practical utility. The reason that this intro is I'm not telling you about a bunch of products is there's just too many, and I don't want this to be an advertisement. But we can talk about some of the products at lunch and what they do. This is just supposed to give you like a basic foundation on top down, bottom up, sort of think about that. Professor Surden's definition. But yeah, hopefully these topics all in good time. And that's it. Thank you for listening.